Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so it's great to have you with me again. So we have almost fully recovered from COVID and a few wee side effects here and there, but nothing too much to worry about. So we have decided to go racing again. First race we did was one of the Zwift Classics. That was okay. Got on the podium for that in a relatively small field. And then decided it was time to go back and do one of my favourite series, the TFC Mad Monday series. The Summer 22 series kicked off last week and we missed that one, unfortunately. But this week was round number 2, and this is the UCI World Championships route in Harrogate in Yorkshire. And as you can see from the map here, it is just constant ups and downs and just savage. So let's get out on course and see how we do. As the countdown gets to 0, we put the power down, and it's been a little while since I last did Mad Mondays, and I forgot that their starts are usually a little bit more, subdued, realistic for a bike race than the WTRL, which is just flat out all the time out the gate. So we'll just sit in with the group and make our way to the first climb of many to come. As we approach the ends of the first climb, everyone had generally sat around 2.5 watts a kilo, give or take, and so the whole group really had kind of stayed together. Nobody had been blown too far off the back. I think maybe one or two stragglers, but nothing too serious on the first little rise of the day. And we move on to the descent, and finally we will get to some more rolly terrain, another big descent, and we will be back for the Yorkshire KOM, the first real killer on the course. So we come down the steep descent, try to get as much super tuck and as much rest in the legs as we can before we hit the Yorkshire KOM, 1.2 kilometres, 5.5%, but boy does it have steep sections, and here we are on to the bottom. Already we're at 6.4 watts a kilo. Everyone else has got the big white numbers up there. This is where the break is going to be made. So one of the Team Italy guys is there hammering out as well, around 5 watts a kilo, and they're starting to pull away. 7% the gradient up here, the heart rate at 190, and the goal is really just to hang on as best we can on this absolute killer of a climb. So we just bumped the speed up a little bit here. We're now 2 times, so excuse the really funny looking legs. It looks like I've got absolutely wild cadence. So off the front, somebody's gone away just a little bit, but all I want to do is just try and stay with the lead riders here as the climb approaches a little flat section. And indeed, everyone comes back. Looking at the gaps, it looks like there's maybe 10, 12 people who have managed to stick with it as we get as much recovery as we can, try and bring that heart rate down ever so slightly from 199. Off the front, it's the Z-Sun rider that is picking up the pace, and we need to get out of the saddle and keep pushing on. Heart rate's now hit 200 as we put down 3 watts a kilo, and we're back in the saddle for this effort and really just trying to push on and try and cling on to the coattails of anyone that we can for this final 7% or so. It starts to ease off. We can see that TFC have got 2 riders up the road. Z-Suns are going to cross the line first, and through the banner we go, giving us 7th place across the line. But the gaps, I think, are now too big to some of the riders. The Vikings rider, the Z-Sun rider, they're gone. Don't think we're going to see them again. As we come down to the bottom of the hill, we have hooked up with Gilmore from the Atom race team, and the lead group is a group of 1, 2, 3, 4, around 5 seconds ahead as we hit the bottom of the short rise. And I realise that if I want to stay in this race, I'm going to have to close that gap as best I can and just try and get across. So I'm going to put down, what we got, 480, 500 watts, and it's going to gap the TFC rider and the ART rider, and I can see the group ahead are kind of resting, 2 watts, 2.5 watts a kilo, and we'll get across to them. It burns the legs out a little bit for later, but it's worth it to sit in the group especially because the other two riders didn't get across with us. So we join the lead group and we'll move on to the next section. So the constant brutality and little attacks and closes lasted all the way until the first climb of lap 2, where we had managed to stick together, but as the Swedish Swifters rider and the TFC rider and ultimately I think the Vikings rider started to just put down 3.5 watts a kilo, 4 watts a kilo, just a little bit too much for my poor legs and poor lungs to take. And you can see the gaps opening up, 3 seconds, 4 seconds to Hobriggs and Rydstrom, and that is going to be the last I see of them. That's a gap too far for my legs to manage. And there's a great pull by the Rhino rider, who's managed to come back from, it must be about 10 seconds down to come back to that. So fantastic work by them. He's going to run up and grab the lead group as well. So we're going to bring this forward a little bit now, and we have managed to catch up with, well, I say catch up, we've managed to drop through the group. The leaders are away, and this group is 10, 11, 12, 13, I think. 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13. And this is kind of where we've settled. It's the kind of pace that we can manage here. There's one off the front, two off the front, sorry, Gilmore from ART and LeBend from TFC, as we hit the Yorkshire KOM once again. And once again, the plan is really just to cling on as best we can, stick with the group, and hope we're still somewhere near the front when we crest this climb. So we're just going to again pump the speed up so that you're not sitting through the total suffering. And unfortunately, you can see people starting to pull away from me a little bit. And I'm hoping that if we just keep a steady sort of pace, a steady tempo, we can perhaps get back up. There's only kind of one left me row from the cryo team, but again, sitting about 3.1, 3.2, and we're starting to bring people back in. Just sticking with this steady sort of tempoed pace. The road is about to flatten out from 7%. Just going to chill out for a wee second. The heart rate's still really high though. But up the road, obviously, is 20 odd seconds back to the main group, and you can see they're definitely not coming back. But we can definitely catch Edwards and Gilmore. Johnson from Swedish Swifters is probably stretched too far. He's 7 seconds up at the road there. But we'll just try to keep an eye on Gilmore here from the Atom Race team. But he just hammers the power again. Just when my legs are giving up, he can just push that little bit extra. And it's just too much for me. I can't get hold of him and bring him back. So he pedals off into the distance, whereas I will just sit with Edwards from the TFC team and just try and hang with him. But even then, he's still putting out 3.5, and man, I'm dying here at 2. I'm just trying to cling on. Just let me see that little line that says close the gap, that you're in the draft. And thankfully, the top of the com comes, and we can relax a little bit. At least 5k's to go, and we'll get a little bit of rest on the descent. The rest on the descent was ultimately short-lived though, because as soon as we hit the little peak again, Edwards kicks 5 watts a kilo, and we're probably doing some of the shortest out of the saddle efforts ever to just try and cling on. He's opened up a gap of a second or so, but it is bringing back Gilmore from the Atom Race team as well. As we reach the top of that descent, we give it a final kick to try and push as much speed as possible, and we've managed to cling back onto the back wheel of Edwards, and ultimately the back of Gilmore as well. Looking behind us though, Rowe from Cryo, 20 seconds back there. Then there's a big gap of 40 seconds back to Parks of the Atom team as well. So our little group comes back together, and it's going to be 3 of us, Edwards, Gilmore and myself, as we go around the last 3 and a bit kilometres of this race. And into the final 900 metres or so, and you can see exactly how this one's going to end up. 3 of us in a group together, and we are just going to sit on the back of Gilmore. Edwards is starting to lay off just a little bit, and it's this last ramp in the final sort of 700 metres up towards the line. So as we turn the corner out of the saddle, up through the gears and on to the power, 6 watts a kilo, 6.3, 6.7 as we hit the final 10% ramps. Edwards the only one up in the power as well. He's got 5.5 watts, 6 watts a kilo. Gilmore's gone, he's 4 seconds off the back. The gradient starts to level out, 3%, 2%. We've got 2 seconds over Edwards. The gap is growing now, 3 seconds. We're just trying to hold as much power as possible down on the drops for all the extra aero that gives us indoors, and push as hard as we can. We're still holding slightly more power than Edwards. The finish line 250 metres away now. Gilmore from Atom Race Team has gone 18 seconds off the back. The finish line is now in sight. Mackenzie of Rhino is slightly in sight, but he's got too much of a gap and is still putting out too much power. We're not going to catch him. But Edwards now 5 seconds back, and that is a healthy enough gap with 100 metres to go. There is the line, and we are homeward bound to take a top 10 in our first race of this year's TFC Mad Mondays. And so look at the top 10 here. We've got Lismo of Z-Sun. He took it by almost 6 seconds from Greenscar of the Vikings, and another 4 seconds or so back to Rydström of Swedish Swifters. Happy enough with a top 10, and it's come to 8th place on the once the results have been adjusted, people have been removed. So yeah, really happy with that for the first race back. You can see from the webcam portion, I am absolutely dead. I think at this point I actually was kind of seeing double, and everything was a wee bit woozy. But yeah, overall really happy. Hopefully we can get better as the season goes on. Maybe break into the top 5, and perhaps by the end of the season get onto the podium would be amazing. But anyway, thank you very much for joining me. It's been really good to be back and see you all again. Give the channel a subscribe. I've got a good announcement about some real life stuff coming up. We're going to be doing a big ride that hopefully will have some real life stuff on the channel as well soon. So thank you again for joining me. I will see you all next time.